So when you find things that are converting great, but it's not like within your budget because the A cost is like way higher than what your margin is, dialing back the budget is a great way. So that your ads essentially don't run all day. You're pumping as much air into the hot air balloon as you need to pump in to keep your rank high, but never pumping in too much.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure ecom business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Aaron Cordovez, and Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth. Today, I'm speaking with Aaron Beiner, who is the CEO of Marketplace Nerd, and we're going to be talking a lot about PPC, conversion rate optimization strategies that can help you survive the increased competition and fees on Amazon. This episode is brought to you by Ecom Breakthrough, where I specialize in investing in and scaling 7-figure e-commerce companies to 8 figures and beyond. If you're an ambitious e-commerce entrepreneur looking for a partner who can help take your business to the next level, my team and I bring hands-on experience, strategic insights, and the resources needed to fuel your growth. If you or someone you know is ready to scale or looking for an investment partner, reach out to me directly at josh@ecombreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's, and let's turn your dreams into reality. But today I'm super excited to introduce you all to Aaron Beiner. He originally started off selling footwear on Amazon in 2008. Eventually, he pivoted into private label and is currently a 7-figure seller on the platform. He currently runs his own PPC agency that is focused on helping sellers with consulting and managing PPC. So with that introduction, welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So Aaron, we'll preface this episode by saying, you've actually been working with our team. You've been doing some consulting for us. We have our PPC team that will come to you and ask for your input and ideas to make sure that they're constantly going in the right direction. So anyways, I definitely value your input. And so you've got a behind the scenes look into our business.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I meet with your team every couple of weeks and we go through it. There's, I think, 4 or 5 members of the team, and we look at, how things are going with new product launches, seasonal products, come up, mastermind ways to come up to try to spark sales, look at sales rank, pricing strategies, and so forth.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, Aaron, you've done a lot of great work, and I think you've got, before we hit the record button, you and I had a really good conversation of things that we could share with the audience that I think can make a significant improvement in their overall tacos numbers, how to survive amidst the, increasing fees. I mean, we talked about it earlier, but 2024 was probably the hardest year as an Amazon seller, and we'll see what 2025 has in store for everything. But long story short, I don't think it's going to get any easier. I think the degree of difficulty is only going to continue to increase. So with that in mind, Aaron, what are the top things on your mind to help increase conversion rates, decrease or optimize PPC spend to at least maintain profit share amidst the Amazon fee increase?
Yeah, it's really important to know what your numbers are. And so one of the big ways we can reduce, or we can increase our profits is either decrease the amount of money we're spending on our profits, our cost of goods, or the amount of promotion we're spending to get traffic. For most categories, there's only a certain amount of sessions that you can reasonably hope to get. So if you're selling stationary product, if you're selling a cream, a hand lotion, whatever the case may be, there's only a certain number of customers coming to that particular keyword or the grouping of keywords during a certain time of the year or even year round. And so your job is to try to get the most amount of sessions, the highest market cap you can get for that product, and try to convert those people. A lot of sellers have been kind of brainwashed into thinking that they have to shovel as much money into PPC as they can possibly get. to get as many sessions as they can. But in a lot of cases, those are sessions they would have gotten anyway organically. Frequently, there's a lot of times where we see an organic placement right next to a sponsored placement. And so all that's happening is people come to a term and they decide whether they're going to go to the sponsored one or the organic one. And it's like a visit you would have gotten otherwise anyway. So what we've been doing with a lot of clients is kind of looking at, when they have a higher tacos, is like what ways that we can cut down their campaign budgets. We'll usually do that by looking at the average A cost and the average conversion rate. The first thing is to ask is if their bids that they're placing are reasonable. Are they reasonable bids, or are they just low bidding to get poor traffic? So you want to get the best quality traffic you can get. That requires a reasonable bid or a higher bid that gets that traffic. And then from there, once you find the best place to convert at, typically what you want to do is, like, if it's over the average A cost on the account, let's say 30% is the average for that particular product, and you're spending $100 a day on a particular campaign, it's $1,400 over 2 weeks, and the A cost is too high. What you can do is, slow down the impact it has on your tacos by lessening the budget on that. So if you're spending $100 a day and you don't like that particular amount that is, going into your tacos, reduce the budget down to 75 a day. And so what you'll find is that it'll force people to go to your organic placement. Your ads won't run all day. Another thing you can do is day parting as well. If you have enough data, you can look at the times of the day that you're making the most sales, and use a tool like Scale Insight to turn your ads on or off for a particular grouping of campaigns related to a product. That's another way to kind of reduce the spend. You ideally want to be, making sales when people are actually on the site. But remember that day parting, it needs a lot of data in order to be able to interpret that data and see if it's something that you won't even want to try. Because, like, even if you have ads running at 2:00 in the morning and there's no traffic, there's also no clicking and spending really being made. Another thing people can examine is price reduction. And a lot of people say, like, well, I don't have the margin. How can I reduce my price? In some situations, you could be kind of a mid-pack contender. You could be number 10 and number 11 or whatnot. And you look at, who's ahead of me, and they're all people with cheaper prices. We've seen some situations where, and we had it with one of the products we were dealing with your team, where we were ranked number 11th or 12th. And the team was like, here's the keywords that matter for this particular product. We're not moving up and down, and we're spending $800 a week on PPC. And I suggested to them, well, you're the most expensive option in the top 15. Why don't we reduce the price $3 and stop all PPC altogether, or run very little PPC, meaning take the budgets way, way down. And so we did that. And by the next week, we were number 7, and then we were number 5. And then it just kind of stabilized where we were in the top 5, which is a better position than being number 12 and spending $700 a week. We were making more money with a lower price and no PPC than we were dumping hundreds and hundreds of dollars in and trying to, die on that hill of having a higher price, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think those are big things. And then the number 3 thing is seasonality. Not all products sell the same year round. If you're selling pool floaties, or you're selling ski equipment, don't run PPC in the off season. Or if you're going to run PPC, run very, very, very little, like literally 5 or 10% of the budget you would normally run. The conversion rates for those products are through the roof during their seasonal time. We had a client that sells camping stuff. I won't go specifically about what the camping stuff was, but it's like, hey, why am I not moving the same amount of camping stuff in December and January and February? Well, because it's freezing cold outside in most parts of the country in the U.S., where it was a U.S. market seller, and people aren't going on a camping trip there. And we look at the data from like a Helium 10 or a Jungle Scout or a Seller Sprite, and you can see, when for the main keywords, camping products, this type of specific camping product, and so forth. When are the spikes? You can even look in Google Trends. When are people actually going camping? that's when you need to have your ads full, all to, foot pedal to the metal all the way down, full, as much budget as you can afford, as many sessions as you can get without overspending. And, other times of the year, you want to be more selective. And that means dialing budgets way down, 10, 20, 30, 40% of what you would spend in the on season, or the real season, or cutting back the number of keywords. If you're running 40, 50 keywords, maybe just keep a few keywords on in that off season or that slower season. Obviously, all products are different. Some products are more seasonal than others. If you sell things that could go well at a holiday party, like foods, like if you sell peanuts, walnuts, almonds, those type of things, they're a big thing that people put on platters during the holiday season. Your business is going to go through the roof when people start gathering together for the Hanukkahs, for the Christmases parties, the New Year's parties. And so with that in mind, that means that their wallets are like literally open. Their conversion is a lot quicker. They're making decisions quicker. And so you have to be aware of that. You have to have the stock to manage that, and you have to just be able to run more sessions when you need to. So just be aware of seasonality. I think those are three major things that 6, 7, 8, even 8-figure sellers could see and implement.
I love that. So, Aaron, to unpack everything, because you just dropped a lot of golden nuggets on everybody here. Okay. So I'm going to jot these notes down. Okay. So number one, you talked about PPC spend and managing your PPC spend to optimize it, to say, like, what is my organic sales percentage versus my PPC sales percentage? You mentioned that oftentimes you need to consider, like, are you actually just like cannibalizing your own organic sales that you are going to get? If you're got the number 4 ad spot and then you've got your organic listing right next to it, like, do you really need that ad spot? And I think it varies for every single niche, makes such a big difference. So that's number one. Then you went into number 2, talking about how you need to understand your true profits. So is it more profitable to decrease your price, even though it's counterintuitive, decrease your price, see a boost in organic ranking, and increase the number of organic sales that are happening while turning down or even turning off your PPC spend?
Well, I want to preface that with, sometimes when you lower the price in a price sensitive market, what happens is, if you were selling for $13.99, you may have had a conversion rate of 12%, and then you go to $11.99, and now you have an 18 or 19 or 20% conversion rate. So you're just going to get more rank by getting more sales organically. So that's why you're moving up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's ultimately finding the price elasticity.
Absolutely.
Right. And where do you ultimately make the most profit? And then last but not least, you talked about seasonality. And one thing that we didn't touch on, but I think we'll go deeper on, is like, how do you manage the inventory, right? What if you have excess stock? I think it's very judicious to spend while it's in season, but then really cut back when it's out of season. Mm-hmm. And so, Aaron, with all of that said, here's what I think is the underlying question that sellers need to know, or they're going to be interested in asking, is like, okay, so how do I track all of this? This sounds great, but how do I actually get to SKU-level profitability so that I can actually see, this was my organic sales percentage, this was my PPC sales percentage? Is it better for me to turn off ads and lower the price? Or, all of these factors that you just talked to us about, great ideas, but they all need to be data-driven decisions. So what data sets are you using, and how are you making these calls?
I'm using Scale Insight personally. You can track tacos, which is the most important stat on Amazon, on a parent level, on a SKU level. I know some people also use Microsoft, right? You can create a system where you can pull in data from all different places. What's that system called again, Josh?
Power BI.
Power BI. That's really for more advanced people, and you really have to know how to use filters and so forth. But I like Scale Insights. Some people too are using Seller Board, I believe, to pull that data in. But I'm really a Scale Insight guy to tell you the truth. As long as you input your COGS and you have a reasonable estimation of your freight, it should be completely accurate.
Love it. So there's some great tools that you recommended there. And we had on the podcast a few episodes ago was the CEO of IntentWise. Now, again, not a cheap solution, but this brings in 5 different data sets, especially through Amazon Marketing Cloud, that can help you make more informed decisions. And my recommendation on that one was, hey, if you're selling like a supplement or something that you have like a subscribe and save, or there's a high repeat order value, you need to have the sophistication to know, yeah, I'm willing to lose money on the upfront, my first sale, because I know I'm going to make it up on the LTV of the customer. And, Amazon Marketing Cloud can help you diagnose that. They can track the entire purchase journey, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think the products that have the consumables in particular, it's a completely different game than someone who's selling you a shelf or a desk or a chair. The one-time seller, or maybe at the best that they hope to get you on add your name to a mailing list, where they might sell you something else down the road. But it's limited. With the consumables, the CPCs for the PPC tend to be way higher. People are willing to spend like crazy to get that lifetime value, a lifetime valued customer, and so people will spend through the roof to do that for sure.
So Aaron, let's back it up and go to step number 1 again. Let's talk about those PPC optimizations, lowering budgets to increase profitability, to make sure that we're not, cannibalizing our organic sales. Can you give me a few case studies here? Whether it be, you don't have to call out specific brand names, but from your clients that you've been working with, what have you seen working there? And do you feel like this is kind of a tried and true strategy?
Well, before I go into the example, one thing I want to say is I'm not a proponent of lowering bids. Most people say, oh, I have a high A cost, but I have my great conversion rate. I'll lower bids. You can lower bids to some extent, but the idea is you want to bid as low as you can go and get the highest conversion rate. Amazon's a conversion rate and total sales on per keyword driven platform. If you have a product like I don't know, box cutter or something, whatever it may be, Amazon wants to see that whoever they're giving a top spot to is the best converting product at that keyword. They want to see that you're making the most number of unit sales or total dollars generated on that keyword. And so it favors anybody who does that. So what you need to try to do is bid reasonably, find the best conversion rate, slowly inch up bids. When a cost gets a little bit out of control, you can start to nudge those bids down a little bit, keep the conversion as high as possible. You can look at insights and planning in your ad console to see what the average is for a particular niche. Like if you're selling box cutters, there's usually a subcategory. You can kind of see what the average median is and what the top performer in that category is. And so try to keep bids at a level where you're keeping that type of conversion rate roughly going. So when you find things that are converting great, but it's not like within your budget because the A cost is like way higher than what your margin is, dialing back the budget is a great way. So that your ads essentially don't run all day. You're pumping as much air into the hot air balloon as you need to pump in to keep your rank high, but never pumping in too much. What you can do is you can measure week to week the amount of sessions and the amount of units that you sold for a particular parent listing, or even just for a SKU. It depends on how many variations you have. But I like to look at the parent because I believe that there's halo effect. So if you run ads to the blue version of your product because it's the best seller, there's also people who will come to that and then go and buy the red and the yellow and the white. So it's like, to me, it's like, what is the total parent generating in terms of unit sales? What is it generating in terms of total sales? And then so if you're at a 30% A cost and your tacos is a bit high, like it's on at 20 and you want it to be between 10 and 15, go find the campaigns that spent the most money that were over 30% ACost and figure out the total amount that you're spending per day average, and go look at your budget and take that number down 25 or 30%, because it's having the most effect on your spend. If you take it down, then it should, in ideal, force people to buy from your organic. At the same time, you want to use tools like a data dive, like a data rova, to track the best keywords for your product. You don't have to track every single one. Track the best 10 or 15 and see where that's going. There's a color code on each of those programs that go from like red to yellow to green, and you want to keep your keywords as high as you can. If you're spending lower and it's affecting that, you're going the wrong direction. You might have to increase it. And so the idea is to try to like walk this tight wire between profitability, keeping keyword ranks high, and not overspending and try to get your tacos within whatever the level of suitability is. Obviously, for every seller, they're sourcing at different margins. And so for some people, they might sell an expensive product and they're like, we have to be in a tacos of 5 to 7%. Another person, they might have a humongous margin of 60, 70% after all fees. And they might be like, I'm cool with having a 20, 25% tacos. And again, another thing that comes into play is, are you in launch mode? If you're in launch mode, you may be willing to have a really high tacos. If you're trying to get more customers for subscribe and save, you may be willing to sacrifice that to get more customers that will eventually allow you to have this like reoccurring income. So I think those are all big factors that you have to consider when figuring out whether you want to cut budgets or not.
Yeah. Aaron, you gave so much for a listener to kind of chew on right there. And I would encourage the listeners to go back, push the rewind button, and slow this down to 1x speed. I know I always listen to my podcast on like 2x, but go slow on here, because Aaron shared some very actionable strategies that you can implement here. But before you just blindly, start cutting budgets, like do what Aaron said, like you've got to be measuring the data.
Yeah.
Step number one is you've got to make sure like you can see causation or correlation with whatever you're doing, and you can only implement one test at a time. Is that the way you kind of approach things, Aaron? It's not like, well, we cut budgets, then we also changed out our main images, and I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
I definitely think that when you mess with price or content on page, that you, like, let's say you launch something that's not performing well. There's a time and a place to make what I like to call wholesale changes. Like, I'm going to change the images. I'm going to change my PPC strategy. I'm going to change. That's kind of a like throw it at the wall, Hail Mary kind of approach. And so if you launch something new and you have a ton of stock and it's sitting in Amazon's warehouses, you might have to try that. You might have to do that. But otherwise, if you're a stable product, if you're mid-pack, or if you're top 10, but you're not in the top 5 and you're trying to get to the top 5, maybe those are the places to make the subtle little changes. Changing your main image, changing your secondary content, the second, third, fourth, fifth images, changing your product video. Those will have less effects. So making little changes and measuring week to week with seasonality in mind, if your product is seasonal, and other things in mind too, is an important thing. I think what people don't understand, and this is kind of like what my background was a long time ago. I used to race radio control cars, model cars, on a racetrack, asphalt and off-road. When the temperatures would change outside, our cars would behave differently. We have to make changes to suit the track, to suit the conditions. That's what Amazon sellers don't realize with their ads. They have to make changes like they're an F1 car to the track conditions. When you see F1, do they run the same tires in the rain? No. Do they run the same tires in the heat and the cold? They're constantly changing what they're allowed to change within the rules. Amazon's allowing us to change all of our content. They're allowing us to change our placement modifiers, allowing us to change our bids, the number of keywords, the types of ads. There's a lot of things you can make changes on. There's also a lot of ways you could throw your money burn your money on fire, like making those changes. But I think the really key thing is like in its bare, like in the It's really simple. It's just sessions and conversions. You want to throw quality sessions at your product detail page. Quality meaning keywords are actually like applicable to your product. Traffic of audiences that actually would be interested in your product. You don't want looky-loos. You don't want window shoppers. You want buyer-ready people, the highest converting people. Amazon's keeping track of positive and negative conversions. There's a thing called the hunger score. They're keeping track of the hunger score, how much people are hungry for your ASIN versus other ASINs on that keyword. They're keeping track of how many times you clicked on a picture, how many times played your video, like all that stuff goes into play. And not just over one day, they're keeping track over 14, 30, 60, as long as it's going. You need to do things to throw quality sessions, people that actually want your product. When you low bid, you put a 10-cent bid, you're saying, I only want to fish at the bottom of the sea for the people who don't want my product. You want to put your ads at a quality level. And now, if you can't afford to run those ads 24 hours a day, so be it. But you want to get conversions. You'd be surprised when you run an ad for $1.50 a click, it might take 6 or 7 clicks to make a sale. You put 20 cents a click, it might take 40 clicks to make a sale. If you add that up, you come out way ahead bidding higher. And then just trying to keep your rank higher too, because if you're taking 40 clicks to make a sale, Amazon's going to say like, this product isn't a very good converter. It doesn't belong in the top 10. And they're going to put you down the page. And so now you've hurt yourself and didn't even know it. So I would say putting a reasonable bid for the category is really big, and trying to maintain rank. And so that's my best thought.
Brilliant strategies. Absolutely love those, Aaron. So let's now move over into kind of like profit optimization. I think there's a software tool that people have been talking about, which is Prophecy. But ultimately, how have you found the best way to balance and find like the true price elasticity to say no ads, but a low cost gives me the best organic ranking and more profit for the business? How do you go about this? And maybe give me some case studies or scenarios here.
I just think you have to experiment with it. I'm using Scale Insight, and you can see what the contribution profit is for like a particular period. So you could make changes like we talked about, lowering a price and then seeing like what the contribution profit is for X number of days prior to that change and then X number of days after that change. I think that's the best way to do it. Other people are going to have other ways, but I would really say another thing you have to play into role is like how much stock you have. If you have low inventory, then that means Amazon's not going to have many of your inventory in all the warehouses across America. That means they're going to rank you lower. You can only really run tests when you have a good amount of inventory. And so if you're measuring your profitability at a time of low inventory, you're probably going to have a higher number of days for delivery. And so a lot of people are going to walk away and your conversion rate's going to go lower. And so you're going to get more clicks and not as many sales. So in order to really test your profit, you have to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. And I think you have to make sure that you're comparing times of having at least 30 days inventory to other times of having 30 days inventory. And that's a valuable thing to know.
I think that you just touched on something right there where the inventory distribution, I think, becomes extremely important. Tell us how you identify like, hey, what's my delivery time maybe on the East Coast versus West Coast? Any reports that we can pull in Amazon to find out where our inventory is?
Unfortunately, there's not, and to my knowledge, there's not really any reports that you can use for that. Maybe there are, but like what I typically do is just go into Amazon. You can use incognito and you can put in different zip codes. I usually start with a West Coast zip code and I say, okay, is this ASIN deliverable in X number of days? Usually 2 being the like threshold. I think if it's deliverable more than 2 days, a lot of people will walk away unless there's a holiday. Like if people understand it can't deliver on Easter, so they might be like, well, it can't come till Tuesday. But if they see it's coming Monday, like they're more likely to pull the trigger. So There's some reports in Amazon that show the like conversion rate at delivery time, like 1 day to more than 2 days. I believe there is that, or a number of units sold with certain delivery times. And so I think the best thing to do is just use zip codes. Put a Texas zip code in. Put a East Coast zip code in. Do you see generally that it's spread out? If not, you might have to think about lowering budgets, not launching that PPC yet for a new launch. One thing I love to do is portfolios. So I like to put all my ads, all the sponsored product ads for a particular product detail page in a portfolio and label it. And so what I do to turn off ads is not go to all the campaigns and flip them all off. The reason is I won't remember which ones should be on and which ones should be off. If I have ones that are misperforming, I like to turn them off one at a time. But if I have a low inventory situation, I go into my portfolio, and instead of it having no budget, I put a $1 budget and a date range, like today's date. And so after it spends $1, which is easy, the ads will just shut off or not deliver. So it's a good way to just toggle all the ads for a particular detail page. I think that's important to do if delivery times are slow.
Let's say you're going out of stock. This is the age-old debate. Let's
Run it
say
off
you're
a
going
cliff.
out of stock. Do you go out of stock at your highest velocity possible?
Well,
Or
that's
do you
difficult. Yeah, that's
pull
difficult.
down the ads, maybe go down slower? At least those are profitable, but you ain't getting inventory for another, let's say, 4 weeks.
Okay, so running off a cliff strategy is like, I'm going to keep my ads going. I'm going to keep my price the same. I'm not going to lower the price. I'm not going to increase the price. I'm just going to run it off a cliff, right? So that's great. You're showing Amazon that you are a well converting product. But what happens when it stops being at every warehouse in America? Now you have slow delivery times. So now you're going to get a lack of conversion from it not being available in 2 days. I think there's a point where you're like, you should have 30 days worth of inventory at minimum, 28 days to avoid not having that low inventory fee. But there's a point where it's down to like 10 days worth of inventory, where you're probably at that point best off turning off PPC, because there'll be a lot of warehouses without inventory, and then you're going to get that like 5, 6, 7 day delivery time, because they've got to send the product from Seattle to Maryland, and Amazon's going to charge you that low inventory fee, and that's still not going to deliver in 48 hours. So there's a point where you have low delivery time. That's probably the point when you should consider taking your budgets down or using the portfolio solution I mentioned.
Great insight. I like that. Now, what about when you come back in stock? What would you
Come
recommend?
back in stock. There's a few things you can do. Number one, you can pump up your bids to try to get more impressions. Even if you're going to wind up overpaying, you're going to wind up paying for your mistake, for your supply chain mistake. Number two, you can find the main keywords for the product. You can create top of search campaigns, set specific single word campaigns, or maybe even 2 or 3 keywords specific to your product. Put a low bid and put a high multiple, 400 or 500%. So let's say the bid is like, a normal bid would be $3 or something. You could put like a 25-cent bid with a 500% multiple for top of search, assuming top of search is where you perform the best. Most products it is. Some products like summer, dresses, footwear, it's not always top of search that does better. Sometimes rest of search is better because it could be a clicky category where people click around a lot. Card games being a great example as well.
Yeah.
So you want to utilize the top of search. You want to utilize low price. If you're normally selling at a certain price, let's say $17, put your product down with a slash through to $9.99. Use a coupon. You could use a $17.99. Use a coupon. If you can qualify for a lightning deal or a best deal, use that. Although that won't be likely to be implemented like right away. It might take 30 days. It might take a struggle of a 3-month period to get you back up to the right rank. Some people use outside traffic or a list If they have a list, they can email to get people to go to Amazon to buy it. You can get a brand referral bonus from that as well. If you are organized enough and have that like figured out how to do that, which could give you a little bit of a rebate. Basically anything to get conversion back up. So if you were converting before at 15%, you want to try to spark conversion at 20%. Anything to get more sales. I'm trying to think what other things people use the buy one get one free or discount 50% off. Anything that would get additional sales. Ultimately, you're trying to reprove yourself to Amazon. It's a proving grounds when you come back into stock. It also depends on how long you've been out of stock. Is it 2 weeks? That's not as serious as 2 months or 3 months. If you're selling a product, highly seasonal, pool floaties, Christmas decorations, don't worry about this so much. Everyone's in the same boat. So if you were out of stock of your Christmas ornaments and you got a pallets and pallets of them in October 1st, don't worry about all this stuff. Just start PPC again and just start rolling it out again and try to improve like you would normally. Everyone's in the same boat. Halloween products, Easter products, 4th of July products, those type of products. They're so highly seasonal that everyone's just thrown into a blender, and you want to try to recapture the previous year's magic. It's a whole new game every year.
Yeah, that 100%. Like anything that's highly seasonal where like sales literally like start and then like fall off a cliff.
Hockey stick of demand. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have that stuff happen, I think Amazon, they've changed their entire, FBA fee tier structures to penalize you for keeping anything in stock over 180 days, right?
Yes.
And so once upon a time, you used to be able to be like, okay, we purchased a little bit of extra inventory for this season. We'll sell it through next year. Yeah, we'll take the long-term storage fee, which is what it was back in the day. We'll take that. And it's, it's not overly significant. Now it's super significant. And I do think like the strategy is like sell out maybe even a week before, the season actually ends. Call that a win. Chalk it up as a win, because the alternative is like you have excess inventory. And if it's an FBA and then you're paying a removal fee, which is at least $1 a unit, you could lose all of your profit just on the removal of that inventory.
I had a friend that was selling solar eclipse glasses, and he wound up with a few thousand left. But then, like a lot of people from the solar eclipse, they use the glasses and then they return them to Amazon. It's terrible, right? Like they buy these things, the event comes, it's only for one day, and then they start returning them. Before he knows, he has 20,000 solar eclipse glasses, and then there's not another solar eclipse for like 40 years or 75 years or whatever, right? At least in the US. So now you have to remove these things because there's no other way to sell them, right? It's not. So there's for one event, you have to. So he would have been better off selling out. He would have still had the returns. Either way, like you're going to have the returns, and then you have to pay 80 cents to remove them or whatever they're charging, So, So for the 20,000 units, you're going to have to spend all the profit you made selling them. You're going to lose removing the however many units. So yeah, that's a big deal with the seasonal products.
Yep. So Aaron, on the note of, I'm curious, like what are the conversion rate, or I guess conversion levers that you've seen make the biggest change or increase in somebody's conversion rate? Maybe some unknown, or some hidden gems that you've discovered along the way. I mean, you talked about the buy one, get another free offer. I think that's a creative strategy. Have you seen that to be fruitful? Coupons have changed. Are those worth it? Like, what are you seeing? Like, hey, this is my go-to strat. If I only have 2 to 3 levers to pull to increase my conversion rate, here's what I'm going to. Here's my bread and butter. What would you say?
I think price is the biggest thing. And if you can get the slash through price, which can be tricky, that's the biggest thing. I haven't found clickable coupons to be as effective. The reason is like it's just sitting there like below the title and like under your brand name, and like people forget to click on them. They don't always use them. They don't always know they're there. They can be tricky too. Like you can either do them as a percentage or a dollar amount. I prefer the dollar amount. It's more intuitive for people to just say like, oh, it's $28 with a $5 coupon. That's easier math than like say 15%, So I think price is the biggest thing. Honestly, the one about the buy one, get one half offer free, I haven't really used that, but I've heard of other people using that, especially consumables, I think. So I think price is the biggest go-to, because look, things are, as we record this, like a lot of people are complaining about the economy. We will have a new president soon, when this comes out. And, there's a little people have different views on the economy, where it's heading, where it's been. And so people are very like, they're uncertain about the future. And so they're not going to spend $1 more than they have to get whatever they need for their Christmas party or birthday party or whatever's coming up. They want to spend as little as possible. And so price is the biggest thing. With most of us, if we look at our customer insight, if we have a brand analytics, you'll see that, like, at least with my products, like the average household income is like under $50,000. So, I sell a lot of products under $20. It's going to make a big difference if it's $21.99 or $19.99. Like it's going to be a huge difference, the conversion.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to result in more sales if we get more conversion.
Great points. Aaron, what else have we not talked about that you feel like our listeners should hear?
Sourcing. Sourcing is big. Like the money on Amazon is made in the sourcing. Obviously, if you sell a product that you can source in the US and you're selling in the US, or if you're selling in the UK and you can source it in the UK, that's great. But man, most things are not made in the US anymore. Most things are made in China and India and Bangladesh, in Vietnam. I know I'm missing other countries. And so get on an airplane, go to a trade show, meet suppliers, take a leap of faith. Try to go to factories, have tea with the boss. There was a factory I went to just recently, and I wanted to buy a particular product, and I was like, how much is this? And they said, it's this much. And I said, well, I did the math with Amazon fees and stuff. I was like right in front of them, I pulled out the helium-10 calculator. It's like, we're not going to make any money. Here, you can see right here. And I was like, what if we put two shelves together? Because it was a shelf product. And they're like, well, now we make a little bit of money, but it's still really no money. And then the boss came walking in, like the owner of the company, and he's like, what's going on? And luckily he spoke good English. And I was like, we don't make any money with the pricing that your like salesperson is giving us. Here's why. Here are the fees. And he looked it over and he's like, well, we have another big order from like a European customer, and if we like piggyback your order with their order to save on like production cost, if we save on the total raw materials, that we can make your products for $4 instead of $5.83. So $1.83 saved off of $5. It's an incredible amount of savings. So we're gonna source that product. By the time this airs, we might be selling that product and we'll know the results. But it went from a no-go, from a red light to a green light, just by like going to the factory. And so, a lot of times too, you do that, you build a relationship. In Asian societies, like that's really big, like face-to-face meetings. They don't really trust you otherwise. You're just somebody buying on Alibaba or sending them an email or WeChat or whatever. It's not as like, they don't trust you as much, and trust is a big thing. As you know, like relationships haven't been great between the US and China. And so for them to put actual like face with the name and meet you in person, it plays a big role in, you want to make partners. You want to have partners in business. You want to, as I think Reagan said, like trust but verify. That's really important. Like with them, they want to verify that you're a real business person, and you want to verify that they're going to give you a quality product, and that they're willing to work with you on pricing, on terms, um, making things easier on you. That they're in the same. You're all in this together. And the only way to
Yeah.
do that is to actually do face to face. Go to Mega Show in Hong Kong. Go to Canton Fair. Go to other fairs, obviously in other countries as well, depending on what is that you're selling, and make money in the sourcing, because you can't just PPC your way to the top. You can't just Alibaba it to the top. Like, you have to try to source as little, give people as much value as they can, and look at your packaging. How can you make it lighter? How can you make it more compact in the packaging without it breaking? How can you give people, honestly, the least amount you can give them and sell it for the most amount you can, or at least source it for as low as you can? That's really important.
Yeah, I agree. You're preaching to the choir here, Aaron. Love these strategies. So, Aaron, as we wrap up, I love to leave the audience with 3 actionable takeaways from every episode. So here are the 3 actionable takeaways that I noted. Number 1, you need to understand your numbers. And so if you don't already have a tool that you're utilizing that allows you to see SKU level profitability, that is probably one of the biggest things that you need to implement into your business. First and foremost, I would go back and I would re-listen to the episode I recorded with Srinath Reddy. He's the CEO of IntentWise. He went into the number of different strategic decisions you should make on your business based off of data alone. And so he talked about how to aggregate that data. As Amazon becomes more complex and competitive, the people that are going to win are going to be the more sophisticated sellers. And so what worked back in their 2017, 2018, I promise is not going to work when it comes to 2028. Things are changing. So that's action item number 1. Know your data, have a data resource, and then utilize the data. Action item number 2 is to test different strategies. I think you listed off a plethora of strategies that people can implement here, Aaron, from reducing your overall just campaign budgets on PPC, to reducing your price, turning off PPC, to increasing your bids, and so much that you talked about. And at the end of the day, every product category behaves very differently. And so you're going to need to test and see what works, and then go take a look at the data. That's all that we've done for our own business, is constantly test, review the data, and then make further changes and adjustments. And that's just the nature of the business moving forward. And then last but not least, I would recommend, going back to your sourcing aspect, I would say the biggest thing that you can do is go meet your supplier in person. I do agree that as things get more competitive, the people that will win are going to be the people that are sourcing the products at the cheapest rates they possibly can, while providing a quality product that allows them to actually generate a profit margin. When profit margins on Amazon are decreasing, it's more and more important that you're sharing that with your manufacturer to know that, hey guys, we're partners. If I can't make a profit, you're not also making a profit either. And I'm going to take my orders away, essentially.
Yeah.
Having those conversations are going to make all the difference in your business. My prediction, I've said this over and over again on the podcast, is that Amazon's going to become a marketplace similar to what you see in a grocery store, where everybody that's selling into these grocery stores, or grocery stores themselves, are operating on single-digit profit margins. That's where we're heading. That's what Amazon wants. They're incentivizing, why we talked about decreasing your price, and that's going to increase your conversion rate, which is then going to increase your overall, organic ranking. Amazon, their algorithm is incentivizing you to bring your lowest possible price. So if competitors continue to bring cheaper and cheaper prices, then guess what happens? Margins are only going to continue to erode. So, which goes back to, do you know your data? Sometimes it may be worth taking that product and shooting it behind the barn because it's no longer making you profit.
Yeah.
So the more data driven that you can be, the better. Aaron, anything else that I missed here?
Yeah, I think ABL, always be launching. Always be launching. And what that means is always be launching new PPC strategies, trying new things, but products. Always be launching new products. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Be careful. Don't borrow too much money that you can't pay back. Like, obviously do it within reason, but I think always be launching. And that's the way to find it. Remember, each new product you launch is a new stream of revenue potentially. And so, like you said, the ones that don't work, take it out back and shoot it in the barn, like you said, to give that analogy, because it's not working. But always be looking for another one that you can put out. And then carefully evaluate it. Is this product easily breakable? Is it going to get a lot of returns? Like, is this, is the amount of storage and the amount of freight worth the profit margin I'm making? What are the risks involved, and so forth?
Yep. I echo that same sentiment. So, Aaron, this has been awesome. Now, as I love to ask each guest the following 3 questions. So here we go. Number 1, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
I'm not a big book reader. I'm a big podcast listener. I'm just a nerd, Amazon nerd. I like to listen to all the Amazon podcasts. Serious Sellers, Seller Sessions, for example. I've listened to this podcast. I've listened to just a lot of the podcasts. I'm just a big podcast guy.
I love it. All right. What is question number 2? What's your favorite AI tool that you've been using and why?
Mainly just ChatGPT, to tell you the truth. And so how I'm using it a lot of times is like, if I'm having a hard time, like trying to figure out, like we sell a lot of toys, and like figuring out a theme for a particular age group, I'll be like, what are some themes that like 5 to 7-year-old boys are into? And it'll give you the themes. And then you can use those to kind of go back and decide how to make a product, like what you should target it. So, if you're like, well, what kind of science toys do like 9-year-old boys like? It'll tell you, give you like, oh, they like to mix chemicals, or they like to do make a lava project or whatever. So you can use that as like data to go out in the marketplace and like see what kind of things are out there, like a trade show, and that could fit that demand.
Yeah, love that. All right, last question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that other people should be following, and why?
I admire and respect you. You've built a paper empire, and that's pretty great. People like Steven Selkoff are great because they're not just preaching about Amazon; they're preaching about other things like selling to gift shops and retailers, and about like sourcing and how to become a stronger negotiator. Ritu Java's great in the PPC space. She tries to explain it very delicately, like what's going on in the Amazon PPC space. I think she's great to listen to as well.
Those are some great recommendations, Aaron. So, Aaron, if people want to reach out to you, they want to follow you more, they maybe want to hire you for some consulting, where's the best place that people can reach out to you at?
You can reach out to me at aaron@marketplacenerd.com. That's AARON at marketplacenerd.com. You can also go to marketplacenerd.com and contact me through the contact form. You can reach me on Messenger, Facebook, Aaron Biner. Pretty easy to find. Just look me up. You'll see my mug. Instagram, I am AaronB1105. Yeah, that's what I'm Aaron B1105. That's AARONB1105. You can reach me there. Message me there. I'm at a lot of the Amazon events, the Prospers and the Accelerates and AMZ United and a lot of that stuff. Come talk to me there. Sometimes I'm even a speaker at some of the events too.
Aaron, this has been awesome having you on the show. Thanks for dropping all your wisdom with us today, and thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecombreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.